He brought me in, oh, his love for me, oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
Welcome back to this series on church and society reforms. We've been talking about church and society reforms. We define 4 types of reforms based on the church and the society. We dealt with pure church reforms, which are reforms within the church. We dealt with social reforms, which are reforms within the society. The last video we started talking about mixed reforms. Mixed reforms, which are reforms that are across the boundaries of the church and the society. The last video we talked about syncretic reforms, which are reforms coming from the society and targeting the church. And today in this series, we're going to be talking about missional reforms, which are the reforms coming from the church to the society. And we know that this one is the most important ones, which is the one that is going to be based on the commission that Jesus Christ gave to us. Go ye therefore and make disciples of all nations, which means we are taking reforms from the church to the society. So it's very important. And here we're going to learn how to have an effective missionary reform. Okay, now let's recapitulate. In reforms can have 3 types of impact on the target. There is always a source and the target, source of the reform and the target. And the 3 types of impacts are: you can have positive impact, negative impact, or no impact at all. When we talked about syncretic reforms in the last video, we see that in any mixed reform, one of the 3 is missing. Like in syncretic reforms, syncretic reform is either negative to the church, it can never be positive. Syncretic reforms can never be positive, so it's either negative or transparent. The same way we're going to look at missionary reforms. Missionary reforms is always going to be either positive or transparent, because we are taking the light of the church to the society. So we assume because the church has a light, so it cannot be negative. So it's either it doesn't have effect or it brightens the society. So the important point, as we started in this series, the important passage that is going to define missionary reform is Romans chapter 12 verse 2. We read this at the beginning of the series, which says, "Be ye not conformed to the world." Let me read it. "And be not conformed to the world, but be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind." So the important one there is conformity. So conformity is what is going to define whether a missionary reform is effective or not. So I define a scale of 0 to 1. 0 conformity means the reform is effective, and 1 means your reform is totally conform, which means it's not effective. It doesn't have any impact on the society. Now I'm going to show you. I represent this by a diagram. Now look at the diagram that is showing on your screen. This is a missionary reform that is totally total conformity, which means the conformity level is 1. You see that the arrow coming from the church, once you get to the society, it changed from yellow to red, which is the color of the society. And you see the overlap. The overlap is what shows you how effective the reform is. You see that the light of the church does not change the color of the society. That's a total conformity there. So when you have a total conformity, the reform is ineffective. Now, let's show the next one. This one shows the case of an effective missional reform. When the missional reform is effective, we call it missional reformation, just to distinguish between any reform and effective reform. You see that in that case, the bright color of the church, look at the overlap, overshadows the society. So it brightens the society. So we want, your arrow is supposed to be spreading to the society and wiping off, spreading the light to the society. That is the purpose of a missionary reform. Okay, now, and conformity, we got to talk a little bit about conformity, what can cause conformity, and how conformity can not be effective. I'm just going to, our good friend Rod Parsley, in his book Culturally Incorrect, actually define conformity in different ways, just for us to now I'm going to read some of the ways he defined conformity. He says in America, he said assimilation, he pointed out 4 different points. He said assimilation syndrome, which those who claim the decision of having the faith in America was actually concentrating on America, have faith in God, have been assimilated into the broader culture of the society. Once they take the gospel to the society, they follow the culture, the society culture. That's total conformity there. Then another reason why we have conformity is me and my comfort syndrome. Some preachers they want because of comfort. Jesus Christ said it's not going to be easy. So, but some preachers, they are looking for comfort, and in that wise, they conform to the society. And reason for that is instead of the imperative, which must be feed my sheep, these preachers, instead of feeding my sheep, they do entertain my sheep, which means instead of taking the gospel to the society, they started to more of entertainment or feed my pocket. Instead of feeding my sheep, they either feed my pocket or entertain my sheep. That is total conformity. So the gospel those have been traded. We have traded gospel preaching motivated by heavenly desire for redemptive change, for worldly diversions motivated by sensual desire for temporal pleasure. That's the way we define that. Then there's another reason again. Another is some preachers are inward looking and comfort seeking. That is, they are just they are self-oriented instead of others oriented. So they are just they are looking for their own whatever they want to gain. That's why they assimilate into the culture. So I often define cultural I'll give you some examples of cultural conformity that has happened in the church. One big example, actually I almost classify that as a negative missionary reform, but since we say that the church cannot have negative reform, missionary reform. This is during the period of slavery. Because the Catholic Church that time, they were afraid of the Islamic spread. So they gave the Portuguese the right to also do as the North African slave trades, because they carried the Bible, they were using the Bible, but they were actually trading in slave. That is not a positive missionary reform. So they conform to the society, they conform to the Islamic behavior to take the gospel. But thank God, because those Portuguese mission never lasted. They died eventually. And so that's then another thing is that some people, they withdraw from the society. You cannot withdraw from the society because they said you don't want to conform. You cannot withdraw from the society. You cannot withdraw from because the Great Commission asks you to go out. So you have to learn how to take your message to the society, and which we are going to cover in this series, to have effective mission. Another example, this one is one biology scientist. I keep saying this. One biology scientist was also a preacher and a biologist. Was actually trying to, because of the preaching of evolution theory, which claims that God did not create man, but man there's evolution of man from some animals. This biologist, even being a Christian, just because of his profession, also assimilated this theory and was trying to convince Christians that we should believe that because even the Bible says God breathed into man. So he said God could have breathed into a primitive man. Imagine that. That's conformity. You conform to the society. And there are a lot of things which I may not be able to cover here. What we call postmodernism, that has made a lot of Christians to conform to the society. We're going to probably cover postmodernism in another series. Postmodernism is very big subject too. Okay, but let's look at missionary reform that are effective. Now, before we go into that, I need to, when we are doing missionary reforms, remember we split the society into 8 different spheres. So when you are taking the missionary, the church reform, we are taking it to the society. The way we convey the reform to each phase, each sphere, is going to be different because each sphere has a different worldview, and so you don't take the gospel to the sphere the same way you take, for example, to the art sphere. You don't take it to the business sphere. Now let's look at this, what we call missionary reformation. Missionary reformation is effective reform. Now look at this, the diagram you have on your screen. You see you have the church in the middle, and you see the church in the middle is bright color. Now the arrow is the one that is spreading that bright color. You see the 8 spheres of the society. That's why you have 8 arrows. You start from the art. You see the art on the top corner. The next one is business. If you follow from art, it starts from art to earth. You see that the first letter is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Art, business, church, distribution, education, family, government, and earth. Those are the spheres of the society. Captures the entire society. So a missionary reformation is the ones that start from the church and spread the bright color to the society, to each of the spheres. So now we're going to talk about each sphere, how you can have effective, what you have in each sphere, and how you can have effective reformation. I'm going to do that in a separate video, so that, because it's going to take some time. And what can actually cause conformity in each sphere. We're going to talk about the challenges you can have in each sphere when you are taking the reform to each sphere. Thank you.